Hey everyone, welcome to the Heart of David. Titles for today's video is Healing the Brokenhearted, and I don't know if I want to call it how to. I think I'd rather call it regaining your identity. So did I lose my identity? Partially. And it has to do with pain, trauma, C-PTSD. So I'm definitely going to be talking about complex PTSD in this because it is it's infused in this story. Excuse me. So this might interest you. This is completely unscripted, and I'm doing this unscripted on purpose. Sometimes I write down points, so when I get all these contractions I can just look and it's much easier, but I think it's better to do it this way. So, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me because He hath anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captives and recovering of sight to the blind, to set at liberty them that are bruised. I'm just saying that beforehand. That's what Jesus said. Isn't that what He said when He read part of Isaiah? Because this is Luke 4:18. I'm responding to a comment that I just read, and it actually came just in time of me doing this video. Not sure if I want to say names, but I'm sure you might not mind. I'll say Maranatha. I get what you mean. It's absolutely no competition. It never is. We who have suffered for a reason. And in my life, it just happened to be a lot of physical pain and a lot of bad experiences, but I think it brought me to where I am. So I can I identify with that? I'm not going to read the comment, but I feel bad about that, but not where it ended up for you. In my life, like you hear me talking about narcissists, okay? I'm not saying that that's what my parents were. They weren't. But I feel sorry for anyone who has dealt with a narcissist in any way of their life. I have a couple times in my life, probably more than that, but two that affected my life. When I grew up with parents who, my brother sent me a letter the other day, and he said I felt it was more to be feared in our family than love. And I love my parents. My mother is gone now. She was my best friend, by the way, but I didn't recognize the things that I should have. Like when I brought a friend over, they'd say, your parents are critical, man. And I realized that they were right. And I wasn't able to achieve so many things in my life because when I went to do things, it was, be careful. The world is dangerous. It was like that type of thing. It was very dangerous to me. It was almost like, if I can't do it, you can't do it. Don't get me wrong, I love my parents, so there are two things I want to say before I get into my life about regaining, and they're important. Okay. People who don't study the Bible and believe in crazy things because they're on a journey, right? We all go there. you start searching back and forth. Is this true or is this not? Is this true or is this not? Is this passage, is it really what it's saying is true? If it says it, it's true. So I'm going to read you something. You want to know if you're saved or not? So you already know that. Just checking if this is recording. You already know that when Nicodemus, I believe he was a top Pharisee, came to Jesus at night secretly, Jesus told him, you have to be born again. What do you mean be born again? How can you be born of the womb again? No, not that. Of the Spirit. I've explained this, and one of the things, especially when you make videos and you get comments, when you read people's comments, you can tell where they are in their journey, like, or they believe you or they refuse certain things. This is, just listen to this. Well, actually, I'm going to give you my experience first. No, actually, I'll read this first. So listen. This is 1 John 3. Sin and the child of God. Whoever commits sin also commits lawlessness. What is lawlessness? That's breaking the 10 Commandments. And sin is lawlessness. And you know that he was manifested to take away our sins, and in him there is no sin. Whoever abides in him does not sin. Let me explain. Whoever sins has neither seen him or known him. Little children, let no one deceive you. He who practices righteousness is righteous. We can be righteous, okay? People say we can't be righteous, but right here it does. Just as he is righteous. Does God look at us as filthy rags, like Isaiah says? In a way, I'm sure, but he recognizes that we have Christ in us, and that we are trying. We are not perfect. We fall short, right? He who sins is of the devil, for the devil has sinned from the beginning. For this purpose the Son of God was manifested, that he might destroy the works of the devil. Whoever has been born again of God does not sin, for his seed remains in him, and he cannot sin. So that's twice it says, does not, cannot, because he has been born of God. So what does that mean? I'll tell you for me, but just give me a break here, because I'm getting a lot of... Just know that the camera, that you're watching me, this camera here, you're sitting on a packet of Chip-Its. So this isn't my laptop camera, it's I don't know, it's like a Logitech HD 1080p. It's a good camera actually. But you're sitting on a packet of Hershey's Chip-Its in my cupboard. So here I was. The problem is that I was believing in a watered down gospel. That there were so many people out there trying to justify their sins that they weren't getting anywhere. They were they were in the darkness. They didn't want to come to the light because their sins would be shown. I don't care who says, you're strict, you're all this. It's a better life, and I know I'm telling the truth. It doesn't mean that we won't sin. Like, say I slam this shut and hit my hand. I may say JC by mistake. That's a sin. I may get in an argument with someone, but I always feel convicted of it. That's a sin. Well, it depends what it is, but you get my point. The point is that someone born of God does not actively sin. We are turned off of sin. If you want to know if you're saved or not, for certain, that's it. And then people will say, well, I believe in Jesus. Is that not good enough? I'm presenting this to you. To be born again, to me, in my life, what happened overnight, being born again, even though I was reading the Bible and I believed in God, I was still practicing sin. So I make my point. A lot of good stuff happened after I stopped actively sinning. He who is born of God does not sin, cannot sin, does not, cannot. Go read 1 John 3, and that's what I have. Your life will get much better if you stop masturbating, which was my last justification. That was my last justification for sinning, and when I let that go, I felt so much better. So much better. You might go through some type of withdrawal or something like that, but trust me, to walk around with the Spirit of God is much better, even in tremendous suffering, both mental and physical. So oh yeah, I wanted to say this quick before I got to that, and I'm glad my oven stopped. I saw this from Truth Unedited, and when I saw it, it kind of blew my mind. You know how it says in the Bible, I'm not going to go into it right now, but you know where it says, till the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled? You know, in Ezekiel, take the rod and measure. You know, don't measure the outside court, you know, measure. He pointed out a video that someone's speaking, saying that in 1967, that war in Israel, the time of the Gentiles, have been fulfilled. Why? Because Israel took Jerusalem back. I will show it in another video for you to understand. You have to see it before you make any decision. But I think it's possible. I think it's possible the time of the Gentiles have been fulfilled since 1967. And why is that? Because they took everything back. You have to understand and accept some things sometimes. Anyways, I will look for that, and when I do another video editing, which is when I sit down to dinner, I will edit that in. Alright, so I'm going to take a little break and I'm going to talk about my life. I do suspect what's going on with my throat is called achalasia. And if it isn't achalasia, it's something that does the same thing. What I wrote a story. It was about a page long, and I put it in a forum of a whole bunch of people that have achalasia. I said, can you guys identify with this? I'm about to go, well, it'll probably be a year from now, based on Canada, for specialists. It took a year to go to a GI specialist a long time. Anyways, they said they thought it was achalasia. I'm not saying that it is, but that's what they said based on what I wrote. So we'll see. Who knows? Maybe I talked with my doctor about, because she has patients with achalasia. And so there is a procedure, and people tend to get their weight back. You can see like the bossing of my scalp and stuff like that. I don't know. I suffer with a ton of abdominal pain already, and but this is a different thing. This is what robbed me of my sociability, about half of my sociability. So, losing your identity are regaining it. There's a lot of people, look today, there's a ton of people who don't have an identity. Like, what is it? It's probably like a quarter of the population. It could be half of the population for all I know, because no one has identity these days, because all they're doing is looking down at a computer or looking into a camera. No, not looking into a camera, because this is educational and hopefully healing. Like I said, when I was 13, I was hit a few times pretty hard. And from that point, I would just, I don't know, I wasn't, damn. I'm stepping on pointy stuff because I work with stuff, so just give me a second here. It's like digging into my foot. Now I gotta wash my hands. I have a lot of wood, like little wood things that you don't see. Yeah. I remember going to school and feeling shame because of what happened to me. A narcissist would look at this and say, you're weak as hell. But it's just the opposite. It's just the opposite. For me to say this took a very long time. For me to admit that this was complex PTSD took a long time. I didn't know what it was for sure, and I kept it inside for, I don't know, maybe a year, when I definitely knew what it was. I believe my road to getting well with Scripture and Yah was starting to introspect and start to look at the things that I have to control myself. So a lot of miracles, real miracles from Yah, from Jesus Christ. Same people, just, you know. I had a hard time. I went through a ton of stuff in my life. Like, I can't even begin to tell you the mental suffering I went through. All my friends smoked weed. It was a time with no computers, no whatever. When I binge drank on the weekends just to take away my social anxiety, panic attacks, and smoking weed. And I have autism too, right? So I was never like other people. People never recognized it in me, but I was certainly different from everybody else. Always, I was like that. Always like that. And I remember at first marijuana made me feel good. Then it just suddenly made me feel paranoid. Everyone gets that paranoia from marijuana, but I got it all the time. I pulled away from it only after, I don't know what it was. So I was doing high school, probably into my mid-20s, but let's say 23. Even though I still did it up to maybe 25 or 26. It was very, not often. It wasn't often. I had LSD. I used LSD, just like a lot of people were in that time. And when there was no computers, everyone was searching for excitement. I had super bad trips. I had about 3 or 4 of them. And they were horrible to go through, and I never forgot them. I have a book. I wrote a book. I never share it on here because I don't solicit. For the poor, it's different, but I don't solicit for my own gain. So I went through those, and I felt paranoid for a long time. I went through trauma because those trips put me in spots where I was like, what do you call it when you can't move? I forget the name right now. I was tripping out. It was very hard to go through. But, you know, that was a phase. It was a phase of grade 9 and 10s. People tended to sell that stuff to grade 9s and 10s because they were looking for cheap highs, because there's only about $5 for a hit. So I got into that kind of stuff, and like I said, I would binge drink on the weekends, and I could get out of control because of PTSD, because it gave me PTSD along with C-PTSD. I could have meltdowns, like huge meltdowns. I was never the type of person who picked a fight with somebody, but if someone picked a fight with me, then I would, if they did something to me. And there was, anyways, I would go through that type of stuff, and it wasn't, I'd wake up in the mornings, sometimes after a weekend of drinking, and the feeling like, oh man, what did I say? What did I say? What did I do? I'm sure you know that, right? So I'm going to link in this video the things that I have been through I Shouldn't Be Alive part 1 to 4 if you want to see that. It's not for the faint of heart, I don't think, but some things that happened to me in my life, a lot of things that happened to me in life, things that were not my own fault. I remember when I was deceived by this who ended up to be my girlfriend. It's a long story, but I was at a party, and it seemed like when I was in a bar or when I was at wherever, someone wanted to always pick a fight with me. I have no idea. I just happened to be one of the people. I wasn't the type of person who started things with people. And something happened, and I got jumped by 13 men, knocked unconscious, sucker punched because I didn't see it. And I went through a lot of those types of things. Here's my point about mentioning these things. When you go through and you start to do all these things, you start to develop, maybe like something that you're not. One thing I went through that I didn't like is I suffered shame, both because I had C-PTSD, but because I was sure that people thought of me in certain ways, and they probably did, because there was probably a lot of stories out there about me. I'm sure there was. So what does this have to do with my identity? It wasn't who I was, okay? I had so much potential in me, but I never used it because, and I don't want to blame it on my parents, but there wasn't enough support, I don't think, in the way of, like I said, it's always danger, always criticizing. Okay, that's the way it was. I'm not going to hold that back. It was also very protective too. I believe my mother knew something was different with me, just never knew. She tried to protect me since I was young. I was different from other people. And so being in that protective, so if you have parents who are narcissists, who betray you, who say things to you, who do all that, it is no different and no less devastating than having parents who are very critical. You fear them. And I was always like, why are my friends' parents so relaxed about things? But us, it's like we're all clenched up. That's what I felt like, okay? On one hand, a person with narcissistic parents, and why I said that was perfect time for that comment, may have no rules in their life. But me, I have very strict rules. I was rebellious because of those rules, and because I couldn't focus in class, all that type of stuff. I was a rebel. That's what I was, in rebellion, like a lot more than like I was doing bad stuff. I don't know exactly why I was doing it. I was looking for a rush where I couldn't fulfill it in school. And it was the friends that I had. I love my friends, but it was just like, we should have been doing something constructive. I felt very uncomfortable in school. I suffered with other difficulties associated with autism, of which I'm not going to name, but focusing, and imagine being in school, I felt paranoid. I did. I had to go in the back of the class, because if I sat in the front, I felt like people were staring right through me. I couldn't focus, couldn't do anything. So school, although I loved school, and I both loved it and hated it for reasons I will not share here. What time am I got here? Doesn't matter about the time, because I want to say this, but I have to take little breaks, because I got to think of the next part. You know, you go to school, you can see I have trouble swallowing too, right? That's another thing that I never really noticed that much. Like, I noticed it, but I didn't think about it enough. When you have so many things wrong with you, I'm telling you, Jesus Christ helped me more than you can even know. I somehow, well, also with medical knowledge, I was able to tease apart literally like 10 different pain disorders. You have no idea. I had to fight each one to get their diagnosis. And this is part of what I'm talking about. So, a lot of people go through this school, after school. You might work for a bit, to see who you are, right? What do I want to be type thing, like a lot of people do that. Many people go to university and go to college right away too. Well, I wouldn't say I'd say most don't, but enough do. I don't know, I guess I couldn't give you the stats, but from what I gathered, maybe that's just my friends. No, because I did know quite a few people and they weren't. I guess maybe because of autism, and because I did have PTSD at that time, I didn't have the confidence. I did go to work and stuff. Not enough. It was never enough. I couldn't afford buying. Well, it didn't matter anyway. I couldn't afford a car. Like here, my friends' parents. Yes, 3 out of most of my friends, their parents bought them a car. Whether it was a cheap car or just like a beginning car. And I'm not saying that's what parents have to do. But watching that caused me a lot of distress. It did. I couldn't afford it, number one. I wouldn't be able to afford that gas, insurance, and when it needs to be fixed. That lowered my confidence so much. I only got my 365, and then I did the driver's school to make it short of 8 months instead of a year. You have to do a graduated system here, and I'm going to do that again after 19 years because I used to drive. But I just drove my parents' car. Never had my own car, so I lost a lot of confidence in that. It was very tough. I stayed in really good shape. And that's why I am the way I am now. Well, I would have continued that way anyways, even if I drove, but I walked and drove everywhere. I've probably walked roughly 2 or 3 times what a regular human being has in their lifetime. That's how much I like that. And those things build confidence in you. Makes you feel like you're responsible, all that type of stuff. If my parents gave me a car, would I have been any different? Maybe confidence-wise, yes. And no, your parents don't. A lot of people's parents don't buy them a car. What I mean is, like, rather my parents would probably say, "Oh, how lucky," or something like that. I don't know. Just give me a sec. Working 24/7 would have been, sorry, not 24/7, but working a 9 to 5, 7 days a week would have just been too tough on me. I had too many problems, too much anxiety, too much drug problem. Because I ended up with, even though I was abusing benzodiazepines, because. And I don't believe that was my fault, because it was in a time when my doctor didn't tell me. I was already on them for 6 years from a panic attack I had in high school when I was 17. Put on them, never told they were addicted. I tried to come off of them, and then I started abusing them because it was so hard to come off of them. That's another story. Don't message me about benzodiazepines, because I'm not going to answer you. I was just going through traumatic things after traumatic things, and so I don't know. A lot of people live with their folks up until their 20s, and sometimes up to their 30s. That's common, especially today, with people can't afford it. So I couldn't afford these things. I was watching my friends work, and even though I worked, it was just part-time, and I didn't feel good in it. Like I remember working a security job. That was okay, because it was like alone. I worked at a sports arena, a major Ottawa Senators hockey team, for about 5 years as a cashier. That was okay, but I had so many panic attacks working at cash with literally 100 people per period. There'd be a lineup from here, the 200-foot lineup. I'm not kidding you. I'm not exaggerating those words. That's how long the lineup would be during the periods. Intermissions. And I just kept drinking alcohol on the weekends. I was on psych meds, and they really messed me up with alcohol. After a while of doing this type of stuff, you just get worse. Your confidence gets worse. I wasn't going anywhere. I wasn't facing my problems. I ended up in the psych ward quite a few times based on suicidal behavior when I was binge drinking. So it was always when I was binge drinking. It was never when not. I also have a low case of bipolar disorder called cyclical. So I'd be very depressed and sleep for long periods of time. And then I could go into somewhat like manias. And if I drank, like it's a depressant, right? It would really get to me. So I was trying to escape. I was escaping from myself. That's it. There's the truth. I didn't want to accept who I was. I didn't know what C-PTSD was. And certainly it was having a big effect on me. Plus I'm already autistic, so. And so as far as autism, like I made sure that I got this diagnosis. I didn't get it just by anyone either. I got it by an autism expert over 6 different appointments. And you know what I failed? I failed the test. I was very surprised. One test that I failed was they gave like 30 pictures of people's facial expressions, and I got them wrong. I got like half of them wrong. So, there's many other things too, but just give me a little break here. I'm going to go out to work a bit, so I'll try to make this as short as I can. I'm not putting blame on on anyone. Some things I could, and you'd have to see my story to understand. But I was definitely cognizant of the things that I was doing wrong. Abusing drugs, doing this to escape, lying as far as things not to do with like purposely lying, sure, I stole money from people and stuff like that to fuel my addiction and stuff like that. When I didn't have money, yeah, I did. I feel really bad for it too, when I was younger. And so there it is. Let's just say that's my youth. By the time I was 23, I was searching for that medication to help depression. Like, I really wanted to get better when I was 23. I took it. I got the serotonin syndrome for 13 months. And anyways, I ended up with convulsions, a hypertensive crisis, a whole lot of stuff. And this drug really messed me up. Doctors didn't know which drug it was that I was on that was messing me up. And anyways, I had so many convulsions that it tore my neck, and I ended up with intractable pain. Spread my face, spread my neck, face, and my whole body. You know what CRPS is? It was like that, but full body, spread all over, and that was where my pain began. And you're going to have to look at my story of my injuries. I tried to take my life because of the pain suicide disease, because no one was telling me what it was, no one was helping me, and I was truly in trouble. I got to a point where it didn't matter if I wanted to work. It didn't matter the things that I wanted to do in my life anymore. I started to realize the goals that I should have met, right? It's when you start losing things, when you realize that these are the things that you wish you could have gone and done. I ended up with a crazy injury in my abdomen. Go look at my story. Like I said, I have 12 pain disorders, and if you count my back, that's 13, but it's better now. Very overwhelming. This is very important for C-PTSD. I couldn't, after my abdominal injury and then a spinal injury, I lost my mobility. Listen, my parents were good to me in the way of, like, you know, making sure I had clothes and all that type of stuff and food. I was lucky that way, okay? I was blessed that way. Suddenly I was in a state where I couldn't get my own medication if I wanted to. I couldn't do anything because I ended up bedbound, couchbound, and got in such a place where it ended up where you're going to have to look at my link story to see where I was so messed up where I could barely even speak to my doctors anymore. I could barely sleep. I could barely adhesive arachnoiditis. I can't even begin to tell you. That's it was very hard. You don't really have confidence when you have so many different pain disorders and you can't do anything for yourself any longer. That is a horrible feeling. I had to count on my dad and my mom to do pretty much everything for me because I couldn't move. It was horrible. And I wonder, did Yah put me in this place to teach me a lesson, to get away from that type of life. But it was for many seasons that it went on for, and I suffered a lot. I'm just going to go to 2017. 2015, I got back up on my feet from being bedbound and couch-bound, but I went back down. I got back up like I was starting to get strength here and there. Pardon me. Here's my point. For so many years of acute illness, like my parents were ready to put me into hospice care. That's where I was. 95 pounds. I could have died any day. Lack of nutrition and water. I wasn't eating and drinking. Likely because of what happened in my throat, but also because of a lot of other stuff. Because I wasn't being treated, it wasn't being recognized. It was truly unfortunate. So I was already nothing already, right? I really didn't have an identity already. Then I go into this, and then I have to have people do everything for me. It was hard because I wanted to be up on my feet, because I was always a person in shape and stuff. And it really took my confidence away from me. For my spine, I went 13 years without knowing what was wrong with it, because I needed a specialist to look at an MRI specifically. And then 18 years for the pain suicide disease of full body, and that was about 6 appointments as well. And but can you imagine, like when I started to get back up on my feet, I was so restless because of abdominal colic that wasn't being treated from like 3 different sources at once, that I was completely dependent even for my parents to make my food when I wanted some. I was that restless. What's the word for that? I pretty much lost my executive function. It was really sad. And for about 2 or 3 years, I chose not to speak. Why? Because I didn't have this simple little medication. You can't barely even see it. A smooth muscle relaxant for my throat. Because every time I talked, I couldn't breathe. I couldn't breathe for a good minute. It was that contracted. I was scared, and that's why I wasn't feeding myself. Because I get severely sick. So I lost my identity in everything. All I had in my head was dreams. I just wanted to die. Honestly. So when I put in my videos, terminal cancer equivalent pain, that's just for one of my pain disorders, just one of them. But I'm on top of them all the time. So my mother died in 2017, and within a year, my father kicked me out of the home because we weren't getting along. And to be honest, he was being an asshole to me. Sorry about that. I don't mean to say that. But I couldn't even mourn my mom because I wasn't being treated for my pain. Like I was just completely lost. Just lost. You can't mourn someone when your life is hell. So it got to the point where I was back up on my feet for good. Before I was kicked out, I started to suspect that I had autism and adhesive arachnoiditis, which I got my diagnosis. Let's just say I found some diagnosis that my neurologist forgot to tell me. I found it in my files. Then I knew what my diagnoses were for my neck. Just a whole bunch of diagnoses I got. It was miraculous. But here's the point. When I moved into here I found myself alone. And it may have taken a few years, but for the first 2 years, I still wasn't willing to face what I was and what I was going through. Why I felt shame about, okay, listen, C-PTSD, you feel a lot of shame because of the things you went through. I don't know. I'm the type of person that, well, I'm a lot better now. But I do look over my shoulder. I do feel paranoid. That's C-PTSD. That's also PTSD too. I wish I have both. Give me a sec. Imagine what I just named to you. My parents were ready to call hospice care because they didn't think they could take care of me. 12 pain disorders, which are 4 pain suicide diseases, and neck damage all over, all the nerves, and adhesive arachnoiditis, full body intractable reflex sympathetic dystrophy. It's got a different name now, by the way. And so here I am, 6 years ago in this building. How am I going to do this all? How am I going to gain a new identity? Number one, I'm like, guys, I'm not even on enough pain medication. I need a lot more pain medication, which was the key, which I didn't know. Because I have abdominal issues, and I always worried about medications, what they would do, and the ability to go to the washroom. And so here I was. Now I'm going to have to wake up, eat, make my food, do my wash, it's not easy to make your bed in this state. Take off your sheets, put them off, repeat, vacuum, clean windows, whatever it is. And that's what I was stuck with here, and it was really, really hard. It wasn't long before that I was in my house on short-acting painkillers, so I went up from short-acting just before I left to long-acting and short-acting. It was the long-acting that I needed because they were wearing out on me, and I was burning out with the worst pain on earth. And that did a lot for me. It gave me not the ability not to burn out. And that's the beginning of regaining your identity, right? What do you do? Who are you? So at that point, what could I have answered? I have a lot of pain. I don't know. I take care of my own place. That's where I was. But it was better than being at home with a critical person. Okay, that's what it was. I love them, but very critical. I end up getting my diagnosis, all that type of stuff. I start making connections with people, and which I don't anymore in terms of like Facebook and all that. I don't use that stuff, except, well, I use it as a tool for other stuff, but for social media, I'm just not that type of person anymore. So I got to take another break. It's my throat as I eat. Pardon me. It gets worse as I eat. So. Here's the gist of this. I had to rebuild my body. I was going out for walks. I went from 1 walk and I graduated into 2 walks. They were so incredibly painful, I can't tell you. I have adhesive arachnoiditis. A lot of people are paralyzed with this. Like I was for almost 9 years. I was punching my legs to stop the pain in them when I'd walk. But I kept going and I kept pushing. And that type of thing builds character and strength. That builds identity. I just kept pushing and pushing and pushing. I work out every morning. A tough workout. It's not an easy workout that I do. To keep strong enough, right? To do all the things I need to do. And eventually I created a business on my own, and I did like a Facebook page, and then all of a sudden now I have my own business online, where you can buy things. Here I am on a video telling you the things that I go through. I have this place in my own name now because it was co-signed. Many people co-sign for their sons and daughters and all that stuff, but it was a good thing. That helped my identity. It gave me confidence. You just have to get to a point where you're going to have to take some leaps of faith. And if you do have C-PTSD or PTSD or anxiety and depression and all that stuff, listen to what I'm telling you. If you don't take a leap of faith and do something, because I'm guessing you're not as sick as I am, and does that matter? It probably does, because you might have a lot more opportunities than I do in this state. Don't get me wrong, I can still do quite a few things, but I have to accept that discomfort to get through some things. But it builds character. What is it? Is it Peter or Paul who says that? It's like 6 different levels. It produces patience. Suffering produces this, and this, right? My voice is going. I gotta finish this off. You want to be able to regain your identity from where you are. If like that comment that I saw, if you have narcissistic parents, you're going to have to get away from them, or nothing good will happen for you. I don't know how it will be done. If you're going to have to find a job, or you're going to have to pray for sure. For me, it was getting out on my own and being able to. Well, number one, I had to, and I spent a lot of time. You know what? I didn't speak about this. I can't begin to tell you the mental suffering I went through. It feels like I was being gaslit by physicians since I was 23 years old. Listen, I almost went 20 years without having the worst pain disorder on earth. It took 18 years, and they found out that I did have it. Many people have taken their lives from, if you've heard of complex regional pain syndrome, it's the same thing. The diagnostic criteria is so hard to meet that people started taking their lives, so they had to change the diagnosing process. And it was a long one too. It was 6 appointments. Excuse me another sec. This is important to say this. You know why I'm doing this? Because I think it's important to do it, number one. Because I remember that. I think you guys can see the struggles I go through. And I'm putting it on camera for a reason. And I'm not embarrassed about it. If people try to shame me, I don't care anymore. Like people put certain comments and stuff, and there's always going to be people out there that do, psychopaths, sociopaths, narcissists, who purposely try to derail you. So I've come to a place in my life where I realize the only one who justifies me as Yahweh is Jesus Christ. I don't care what you think, because why would I? How is that going to affect, like what you think about me? How does that even matter? There's a lot of people. Okay, so I say it, right? And there's going to be a lot of people who are like that. I think most people are like that. Certainly there's people who aren't. A lot of people who hide it. But when you start putting your faith in the scriptures, the Word of God, then you start realizing He's the only one who can do this for you. I think I went through all the things I went through because for you to hear it. I would have never imagined that I'd be on a camera talking about this of all things. Being on a camera, period. Purify your lives. I had to repent. I had to repent. Say, listen, I'm sorry that I did all these things when I was young, that I did this, and this, and that's when Yahweh drew near to me. That's what I believe happened. And it happened very quickly. Like suddenly I started to realize that, like, holy, I realized that what sin is, like I could see it in front of me, like what it does to a person. Stay away from it, you'll be pure. You'll be made clean and pure. That's why I read 1 John, what was that? 1 John 3? 1 John 3. And the reason I said right in the beginning, Luke 4:18, I come to heal the brokenhearted. I feel that Yahweh put me in this spot to talk to you. Okay? It doesn't mean I don't still go through feelings of shame and paranoia, because I do. And it isn't easy being on camera. It's just I've been on camera so many times. Am I good socially? It's very tough because of what's going on in my throat and all my pain and stuff like that. You know, if I get to know someone, it really isn't. And I just try to get used to it, right? Like, I don't know, in this state, I just really have no need to be social, to tell you the truth. I'm not telling you not to be social, because being social is a good thing. But remember, bad company corrupts good morals. Bad company corrupts good morals. So if you're around people who are doing stuff that you don't approve of, don't be around it. Unless that person changes, but I guess they're not going to change for you. So I'm going to finish it this way. The biggest obstacle, and this is a killer, is shame. You know the reason why narcissists can't turn around? There are self-identifying narcissists who have. I've seen their channels. Sorry, it's because I'm eating. You can see me getting worse. Oatmeal and blueberries. And clementine orange to keep away kidney stones. The reason is because they're not willing to look inside themselves. And as the scriptures say, what does it say? It says they don't want to come to the light because their sins will be revealed, right? Anyone who comes to the light, anything that is bad will be shown. I believe in studying the scriptures deeply. Like I can't say it enough. It's saved me. Can you be saved without reading the scriptures? I don't know. Like people at their last breaths, you know, they say, I'm scared, you know, get me a priest or get me a pastor or get me anyone who knows stuff about that. save me, I do believe, in their last breath type thing. Yes, I do believe those people, if they genuinely believe. You can't be saved if you don't believe in the Son of God. Plain and simple. It says it over and over and over. But read 1 John 3. We all fall short. We all will continue to sin. We all have guns. No, we all have evil thoughts. Right? We all have evil thoughts. Thoughts that come into our mind that are not ours. You ever wonder that sometimes? You might just all of a sudden have strange thoughts that you just know that you weren't thinking about. Or you talk to someone and you a little irritable at them, but in your mind it's like, I'd like to kill this person. No, not kill the person, but you get my point, right? Yeah, so I'm going to stop here because I want to get out. So I have C-PTSD, and I've regained my identity. Not that I lost it, but it was like it was put away. I didn't have, I always had good values, but I wasn't having any of them into practice because I couldn't. And when I lost everything, I realized that I wanted it back so I could do things right. And that's why I'm talking to you. Have a blessed day.